glad you're here. You are, first of all, hello. Um, you're in Monaco right now. I've
Yes,
heard great
indeed.
things, seen great things about it. And so you are a spiritual anthropologist, explorer. Um, you are here to know the truth. You are a teacher, you are a guide, you're a psychologist. So basically, your sense of you're curious about life and who we are. And you're known for mostly a popular documentary, Finding Superhumans, where you travel the world. Um, based on, I believe, 30 to 40 years, you meet all the spiritual masters. You try to understand the truth. So yeah, David, it's a pleasure having you in my podcast. So I'm curious to know, firstly, what's your story like? um I remember watching the series. You mentioned when you were a young kid, your your mother was in the military, correct?
Uh,
And
I was raised by my grandmother. So, yeah, my
grandmother, okay.
grandmother was a military, yes.
Your grandmother was in the military,
And
okay.
an atheist on top of that.
Hmm.
But for a long story, I somehow went to a very strict priest school, like, a proper priest school. So there was, the preschool with going to church, and then there was home with the atheist grandmother.
Hmm.
But just because these preschools, they just gave very good education. So you go there, and it's a very strict discipline, but very good education, right? So,
Hmm.
uh, but
did
anyway.
you feel did you feel connected did you feel connected to God, or were you did the school um
Well,
make you?
I mean, religion is something that the more you study, the more you have questions about the whole idea of God. Because, I mean, every religion that you actually properly study, okay, you just realize it is a fable. It's the kind of a summa of fairy tales, okay, of mythologies, of narrative, of stories, right, that span a few thousand years. So the question that you ask is a delicate question because, again, studying religion, whichever religion you study, okay, you study the narrative of the human psyche, the evolution of the human psyche, all right, in the specific cultural, anthropological context of that specific religion. So you have sort of not even a picture, a small movie of the evolution of the movement of the psyche of a whole civilization, okay, in that specific religion narrative, in that specific fairy tale. All right. And so the question about God it's a delicate question because it is always what is the understanding that you have of this world, right? And then what is the understanding that you have of the sense of the divine, okay, or the sense of the so-called spiritual, right? Which again, it probably dramatically changes across millennia because if you ask the shamans of Central Africa or Papua New Guinea or of the depth of the Brazilian basin or of the Aboriginal of Australia, right? Well, you're going to have a very different understanding of, of the sense of the divine, of what is spirituality, of the spirit, or even of the idea of God, right? So this one is a very delicate question. So first thing, then having clarified that 20 to any serious researcher researching religion is understanding that there is this bunch of stories and mythology. Based on that, do you believe in a god? Well, again, it's very hard to base the belief on God on a bunch of Neolithic fairy tales, right? And many of these fairy tales, they're not even Neolithic, they're not even that old. They're like fairy tales that developed from the Neolithic period across few millennia, right? I mean, consider that really the religious literature as we know it nowadays, okay, it really took its final form in probably the 9th century, 10th century, right? So really not that long ago, right? Even what we call the Abrahamic religion, which in the West at least is what most people in one way or another were exposed to, right? The final version of the Abrahamic religions in all of their form, either in Judaism or in Christianity or in Islam, it's hardly before the 6th, 7th, 8th century. Okay, but the narrative, the mythologies, the stories, of course, they are much older. You can trace them all the way back to Babylonia, right? To Assyrian Babylonia, right? And so, can you really believe in a god or in God based on these fairy tales? No, clearly not. So, from where do you derive a belief in the divine? I think that's a better question, right? And the answer is, well, before humanity even knew how to write, so before the Babylonian period, which pretty much accepted the Babylonian Assyrian cuneiform writings, it's sort of the first attempted writing that we have preserved, right? And that one goes back several thousand years, is even before the Egyptians, right? And so before that, we go back to primal cultures, such as the one that are still preserved in Africa or in South America, and and very few other places really, or in the Indo-Pacific. So how did people came about an understanding and appreciation and experiencing of God or of the divine, of the spirit? And I think that is a much more interesting question. And the answer is nuanced, because on one level, our mind it's an engine of meaning. Okay, our mind and sort of the physical interface of the mind, the brain, right? It's designed to create meaning out of nothing, out of everything. You give the brain 3 points, it will create a meaning out of it. Okay, it will create a story about these 3 points. And this story is going to be passed over to the next generation. And within 5 generations, you have a big book about the 3 point and the story of the 3 point and the religion of the 3 points and the God of the 3 points and everything that you can do and you cannot do if you believe in the 3 points, and what happened to you if you believe in the 3 points, and what happened to you if you don't believe in the 3 points. And so understanding that our mind is designed to give, create, and find meaning everywhere and in everything, where there is a meaning and where there isn't a meaning. Okay, because nobody really knows why our mind is designed in that way, but we can probably deduce that it's a fundamental instrument to help us survive. Okay, so we create sort of meaning because we can create scenarios, and these scenarios help us to model and to create predictive models of our surrounding, and therefore we can establish some sort of a dominion or control our surrounding by creating certain narratives, right? But those are still speculation eventually. And so when the ancients saw things, felt things that they didn't understand, they gave to these things meaning. The sound of the wind, the sun rising in the sky, a thunderbolt, a spark of fire, the dreams that they see in the night, and God knows, maybe the spirits that they appeared, because who knows, maybe 10,000 years ago, the spirits were really more visible to us. I mean, we don't know, right? Okay, for whatever reason. So we have to be open-minded and assume the possibility of it. And that somehow people that live in these primal conditions, maybe because they were taking also quite a lot of psychedelics, they really could see an expanded version of this reality, right? And so out of whatever we saw, we felt, we experienced, the emotion that we felt, we created stories, we created meanings out of it, and we gave them names, right? And so this all in Sanskrit, in the Hindu tradition, in the many forms of the Hindu tradition, all the way to Buddhism and other forms, but there is this very elegant definition of the nama and rupa, the name and the form, right? And so the naming of thing, I see something which has a certain form and I give it a name, right? And so when I combine name and form, an entity is created, and that entity sort of, in the moment that is named, as a life, a spirit on its own, okay? And so there are spirits in the trees, spirits in the seas, bigger spirits in the skies, and, so forth and so on, right? And then, there is the spirit that comes from the archetypal figures of our mind, which fundamentally is our parents, the first gods, the ancient gods. It's our parents, right? We are born, they feed us, they give us a name, okay, and we look up to them. People always ask me, well, why in every culture when people pray and the God is in the sky? Well, of course, because when the child is born, where is God? He's always up. Papa and Mama are always up. So the authority, the voice is always from above, right? Okay, and so we grow up with this voice and this authority in our ears. We grow up with this authority from when we are in the womb of our mother. The voice, the authority, the neural connection are always top down, right? And then we create a narrative that these voices, which we internalize from our parents, the authority that tell us what is right and what is wrong, what we can do, what we shouldn't do, shape our, what we call our conscience, right? And that conscience is the voice of the divine inside us, right? That sometimes we hear, I heard the voice of God, or God is telling me to do this. Maybe, for sure is your conscience telling you to do that, is your, internalized moral authority that is telling you to do this or not to do this. And then, how do you respond to that? Do you heed the call or you deny it? Okay, that's all another conversation. And so from all these manifold experiences, and I think that we just scratched the surface, well, we created God, we named God, okay? And we create a whole narrative about one God and many gods, and and so forth and so on. There have been 5,000 gods in the course of history, right? And for 4,990 5 or 3 are probably forgotten, and now there is only 6 or 7 that are remembered. There is the God of the Christian, the God of the Israeli, the God of the Jewish, and then there is a few gods of the Hindus, and whatever, and maybe a few other gods here and there, but altogether of the 5,000 that were, very few are remembered now, and probably in another 5,000 years, the one that we now remember will be forgotten, and maybe there would be no God anymore, because humanity will have moved beyond the need of this narrative, or maybe we will have created new gods, right? Who knows? Okay, or maybe the ET from space will come and declare themselves our gods, and we will so recognize them. And so, when you ask a question about if what's my relation with God, if I believe in God, or if going to church or being exposed to religion and studying religion and traveling the world, made me believe in this God, in the divine, in the spiritual, is a very tricky question, because once again, it very, very much depends on what's the meaning that you put into this word, right? And what's the meaning that you put into the whole idea of spirituality more at large. So I would tell you that the more you study things, the more you deconstruct them. So you see them at the atomic level, and then you go deeper, you see them at the level of particle, and whatever seem to exist, whatever seems to exist, when you actually look deeper and deeper into it, and you see all the skandhas, again is another Sanskrit word, that is the aggregates, the elements that makes it up, the particle that make it up. You keep looking deeper and deeper into something, what seems to exist maybe doesn't really exist the way that you think it does. And so the concept of God, the concept of religion and spirituality is the same. From the outside, it's a nama rupa, it's a name and a form. It's Shiva, it's Jesus Christ, it's Allah, or whatever is it, right? And you say, fine, and there is a book, and there are prayers, and, blah, blah, blah. And there are forms of it, and nice little paintings. Okay, but you go deeper and deeper and deeper. You take the microscope and you start to deconstruct this namarupa, this form, and you start to see that it's made of aggregates of other elements, and you keep looking, and then suddenly there is a magical moment where what appear to be as it is stop to appear as is seen. And so what appear and what is, there is a discrepancy between the two, right? The deeper you look, and this one is interesting because it's the conundrum between, classical physics and quantum mechanics, right? And so, where the macro world appear to be of solid, discrete objects and forms and particles. But if you go deep enough, this solid and discrete world, cracks, right? And it becomes more a world of probabilities, of spaces, right? And so religion and the sense of God and of the divine is very much the same thing. The more you really look into it, the more it stops to be so monolithic. It doesn't mean that it stopped existing. And so, to come to your question, do I believe in God? Yes, I do. Do I believe in God more than maybe before? Yes, I do. But it is such a dramatically different belief, that is so far from the way that is articulated or extrapolated from, the religious perception, okay, or the religious explanation, right? That compared to that, I would say, no, I don't believe. You get my meaning here, right? Especially when, you combine all of these with your own personal experience, right? And so logically, after many, many years of meditation and retreats and psychedelics and spiritual epiphanies and whatever is it, miracles and visions. You combine all that into the picture, right? And so my understanding of the divine, of the spiritual, of God is, yeah, again, it's probably different, maybe disappointing if someone would approach it, from let's say textual sources and classical religious, point of view. Let me say like this, but it doesn't mean that I don't believe. I do.
Wow, that was a beautiful, beautiful and mysterious and abstract and highly detailed explanation. The reason I asked you this question is because I was trying to pinpoint, because I really love the way you mentioned how the mind observes something in their field of vision or reality and can make a meaning, an instant meaning, which could have an interpretation that is also um, linked genetically to our ancestors, to archetypes, and etc. and etc. Um, I wanted to know, like, how did you fall into this path that you are on right now? That started from when you were a kid to you finding, uh, you know, finding the answers for your own perception of meaning. Traveling the world, meeting masters. What was the what lit the fire within you?
Well, uh, it's always the stick and the carrot. The stick is the pain, the suffering, um, the traumas, the conflicts of our childhood, of our upbringing. That's the stick that pushes, and you are pushed out. You are pushed because you are suffering and you want to get out of it. You want to get out of an uncomfortable position, so you're looking for an escape route. Okay, and let us remember that 80% of spirituality and and all religious experiences and the sort of spiritual um, desire or research, right? It's rooted in suffering. It's rooted in an unreconcilable distress. Okay, that pushing to escape, finding a way out from a reality that you cannot make sense of, that you have no control over, and you are looking to establish a reality where you have control. So you see, spirituality is an escape, first of all, is an escape from reality. So it's a neurosis. Neurosis being defined as a separation from the mere reality. So spirituality is a neurosis, spirituality is an escape. And spirituality is trying to reestablish a certain control over an environment, your psychic environment or your life, where you felt that you don't have that control. Okay. And so it's pretty bleak, right? There is nothing grand. Whoever sell you fairy tale, the spiritual journey, it's good for marketing. Spirituality, the search for the divine, the great journey, start from a place of pain. So the hero journey Start from a wound. Right? And you don't need to go and look very far. It's not about past life and all this nonsense. It's just your childhood, your parents, okay, your immediate environment, whatever there was, you know, your family, your school, right? There, for some reason, some people more than others, they were hurt, okay, and they were not able to absorb, metabolize the trauma. And so you create a coping mechanism, and the coping mechanism is escaping into meditation. I don't feel anything, right? Or prayer, something out there is good, or something will save me. I pray. Or the search of a guru. You put responsibility into someone else's hand. You know that in the spiritual world is a word of masochist. Okay, all the great masochists are, the majority of spiritual searchers are masochists. And if you understand the definition of masochism, okay, well, masochism is very simple. It's when you cannot bear the responsibility, the weight of your own being. And so you give it to someone else, right? And so you give that person power over you. And specifically what you do with masochism is that you repay your sense of guilt and shame mostly, okay? And so you're asking another person fundamentally to punish you so that you can feel better about yourself, right? And so the spiritual discipline is always the teacher that in a way or another, it's giving you some very hard exercises to do, and then he has responsibility, you don't have any, and you suffer because sitting 4 hours cross-legged, don't drink, don't eat, don't sleep. What is it? It's masochism, right? It's a suffering that you do to pay off some kind of guilt. You feel yourself guilty or dirty, or you have been chased away and you believe that there is something wrong with you. Your soul is tainted, you are cursed, you are dangerous. Whatever is it that is your little demon, that is the little voice in your head. Okay. So you try to atone for that. Okay. And so spirituality is a coping mechanism of escape in which there is a good dose of masochism, where you try to atone for some kind of imaginary guilt, shame / sin. Okay. And which you may have committed, or others have committed toward you, right? Or you have committed toward the community, or toward the family, or toward yourself, or toward, imaginary, your parents. And so that's the stick of spirituality. And is what people don't see. People only see the carrot of spirituality. And the carrot of spirituality is everything the spirituality, and here it means religion and whatever, a faith or a belief, promise you, is the carrot in front. There will be a place without suffering, paradise. There will be a place without distress, meditation, samadhis. Okay, there will be a place where there is no old age and death, the fantasy of immortality, of eternal youth, which was my own personal illusion, my own personal carrot, right? And so that if you open these energies, these channels, this chakra, you absorb the energy of the earth, of the sky, you mix them, you combine them, you refine them, you will be immortal, okay, or forever young. Right? And so this is that the carrot in front, and for different people is a different carrot, right? It's superpowers. So the fantasy of power, right? And the fantasy of power is, well, that's another very long discussion. The fantasy of power. I will have powers. I can fly, I can make fire, I can heal people, right? And so that's the carrot of spirituality, which of course is a projected fantasy, right? When you look at it in a detached, objective way, it's a projected childhood fantasy of the superhero, of of the superpower. Okay, and it tells a lot about the stick. It tells a lot about the suffering of the person, because whoever is projecting and it's attracted by the carrot, by the promise of the superordinary, of heaven, of a God, of a place where there is no pain and suffering, there is only love and only everybody love each other and no war, okay, or eternal life or eternal mental peace or whatever is it, right? Well, the fact that you are attracted to any one of these projected power fantasies, it tells a lot about the state of separation well, again, of suffering that you have inside. And that suffering is an incapability, an inability, a resistance to love, ultimately, right? And so all of those things, they become sublimations for it, right? And you give to these things a lot of meaning. So we come back to our mind making meaning, right? And you give a meaning to the fact that the chakra is here, and I see this light, and I see this thing in front of me, and I feel this energy. Oh, and then so if I see this or if I feel this, it means that this is the meaning that tells me that I am progressing. Or generally, the teacher, the guru, the sifu tell you, now if you feel the energy here, or this one, it means this and this and that. You are for sure progressing. One star, one step closer to God. And now, next level. It's all a fantasy. It's all a big projected fantasy. But you can't take it away from the person who is living it. Okay, you can't take away Santa Claus too early from children. You hurt them. They need to believe that there is Santa Claus. You need to believe that there is a good God, the angel, and heaven, and everything will be in peace, everything will be good, because life is scary. Nothing will be good. You can't control anything. You will die, and you have zero control over it. You don't know what happened tomorrow. There are wars happening. Okay, you don't even know if you'll be able to have enough money to live in the next 10 years. And so we cope with the anxiety of being, and we create for ourselves a rock of meaning which take away our anxiety. Right? And so we need that story, we need that narrative. And that's the carrot. So you ask me the question, and I answer. What brought me to spirituality? The stick and the carrot. I had my own stick, I had my own suffering, which pushed me to have spiritual experiences, right? And so I was having visions from when I was very young, like real visions, open eyes. I would see different worlds, different places, masters. I had memories of, what I have to do, the people I need to meet, the practice I was doing, and I remember everything, and I had visions. The suffering inside pushed me right? And then the carrot, I find for myself a meaning. Well, okay, this, and that. And so between the two, you have an engine that moves you. And so you progress on a journey. And this journey is a fantastic journey. It's a great adventure. Is a great adventure, you know. But eventually you have to wake up from the dream. This adventure is a beautiful, big dream. Right? But eventually you need to wake up, because otherwise you will remain in this Peter Pan syndrome for forever. Right? Pajamas and turbans and incenses and spirits and gods and tankas and rituals and bells, you know.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's a spirituality and the whole idea of spiritual journey or spiritual goal, spiritual enlightenment, uh, the purpose of it all, and why we do it, and religion. Those are fascinating questions. I mean, you know, I pondered these questions all my life, and I can tell you that, you know, 10 years later, I may give you a different answer. You know? So those are questions that keep unfolding as long as you are alive. And those are logically the answer that I found for myself. Okay, there are people that did the journey, and at the end of their journey, they put a nice pajama, a nice turbant, and they become monks in a certain religious sect, Hindu or Buddhist or Islamic or Jewish or Kabbalist or whatever, right? And at the end of the journey, instead, that's it. They decided they want to go full in with a certain set of beliefs, and it's perfectly fine. And they believe to the letter whatever is written, and they find that there is exact meaning into that, and in the words of the teacher, and in these practices, and in the promises that are given of after death, and so on and so on.
It was really, really wow. I don't think I have heard an explanation, uh, yeah, like that in a while. So when you said, first of all, I totally sympathize and understand the pain aspect of it, the stick. That's what drew me. That was also my trigger point into the search, the wound, and that got me into the journey, and then there were more pain, a different kind of pain, and then a different kind of answer. So it's sort of like a bunch of different combinations leading to a different path, etc. So you basically describe point A and point B, and you mentioned a you're sort of asking asking to step out of that illusion. Is that when you said, Peter Pan mystery, like, fairy tale? So what is beyond waking up? What is beyond that illusion? Like, after you go through, when you find your carrot, say you have realized that what I have been doing for the past 20 30 years, you had this um, trying to, cope with this process, that process, this medicine, this psychedelic, or this guru. What is beyond that? I'm curious.
Well, you know, if you get there, you know, that's going to be your answer. You know, I have mine. You know, it makes no sense for me to tell you what's my own very personal resolution of it. First of all, because, you know, if God will, I still be around, you know, many more years. So I hope, and so that definition and that experience may change from what is today, but you have to come to your own. The only thing that I can say is that you know what happened to sort of many psychotherapists that resolve their own issues, right? They stop being psychotherapists. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And so after you've been filling up your tantien for 20 years and you have the thunder, the current, the fire, the vision, right? And in that process, if God will, you also maybe understand something rather than just feel your tantien and move the energy and blah blah blah, or whatever you see that you do, right? Or visualize a Tara, Buddha, or pray to Jesus Christ. But if in doing that you also maybe understand something, which is absolutely not given for granted, okay? I mean, you can see a lot of very accomplished yogi or qigong, neigong, Tao master, whatever, very accomplished in their arts, but they didn't see beyond, their own nose in terms of understanding. But let's say that if and through this process you actually also start to understand something, I can tell you what happened for me, that when you actually understand, well, you lose most of the libido for it. You lose most of the motivation because you finally saw why you was doing it, for what, the real reason, not the story that you made up for yourself or that someone put in your head. Because if you do this, you will be one step closer to God, you will be immortal, 72 levels, you will not forget yourself when you die. Whatever story they put into your head, you will go in the pure lands, you will not go into hell. Whatever story. Okay. But when you actually understand why you do what you do, for who you was doing it, right? And what is it that you actually do? You, like a psychotherapist that solved his own issues, you stop being a psychotherapist. You lose the interest, and that's what happened to me. When I finally, thanks God, saw it all, I just lost interest. Just like a child lost interest for his toys. It's not bad. I had a great time with my toys. I had a very happy childhood. I had a very happy spiritual childhood. I was spoiled. I had all the best toys. I had time to play with them. I create incredible stories and fairy tales and adventures. I loved it. Right. And then one day I grew up and I just lost interest in the toys. So that's how I could give it to you, my answer. But I will not really elaborate much more than that because it was my journey, and your maybe will be different. I mean, you understand. And the more they do it, the more they become identified with their persona. I'm a guru, I'm a sifu, I'm a master, I'm a lama, I'm a rinpoche, I'm a whatever, right? And so the more they do whatever they do and they have certain experience and their experience confirm their expectation and their belief, right? The more they believe in that persona, the more they believe in that identity, the more they become that identity. And it's good because the world needs also good teachers that believe in their identity of being teachers. And they believe in good lamas and rinpoches with their nice pajamas and whatever, yogis or what else, priests or else, or sifus or else, fine, you know. And so, you understand, it could be very different. For me, it brought to, I lost interest in it. For somebody is, I become more and more convinced and interested, and I lose interest in everything else. And I just want to be a sifu, a guru, a yogi, a lama, and that is it, right? Um, and that's my truth, and that's my happiness, and that's what makes me happy when I do it, and everything else it's not interesting and it's boring. And I understand very well. For most of my life, I was practicing meditating a media of 6 hours a day throughout my life, with peaks of 12, 15 hours a day for many years, not just a few months, many years, like insane training, dedication, belief. I just was not interested in anything else. I could sleep on the floor, eat, don't eat, doesn't matter. Right. It was just like an Olympic athlete, right? You don't think of anything else. And I was happy with that. I didn't want anything else. Right. And so the more I was experiencing it, the more it gave me confirmation. The more I had confirmation, the more I believed it, the more it strengthened my resolve, the more, blah, 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 right? So again, I totally understand. For me, at the end of the journey, nowadays I say, thanks God, I lost interest in the thoughts. Okay? I lost interest in that identity. David, the whatever, spiritual, whatever is it. Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing. Um, so I think this conversation can go in a lot of different time frames. I think I have the way I posed the question. It took you to because my identification of you for the first time. I've seen your documentary. How many years ago was it? How many years ago did you shoot it?
That documentary was maybe 8 years ago, something like this,
Mm-hmm.
give or take,
No. Mm-hmm.
maybe
So,
7,
okay.
8, 7, 8.
Mm. Yeah. So you have your identification of who you were back then is different from what it is right now. Is that yours?
Oh
Is that?
no, no. I mean, even back then, that one was just a show. Was just reenacting myself in my youth. But thanks God, already 7 years ago, I was already very much done with the toys.
Mm.
They just asked me to reenact, some moments of my life, of my journey, some whatever, some characters, some stories, and sort of, we created something to give a sense of a narrative again. But I was already very far from all of these things.
Mhm. So, and since you brought up toys, I would like to delve a little deeper into um, some of the techniques per se, some of the teachings. Based on the conversation we had, um, when the suffering leads you, puts you out into the world, you tap into maybe a hero's journey of your own. Some seek meditation, some seek, self-development gurus, do different seminars. Um, so diving deep a little into that, um, one thing I've seen really, really common in all of these traditions is a journey within, especially for instance, let's talk about something simple as meditation. You close your eyes and it's totally dark, and you slowly learn to cut off the threads that bind you to this reality, sound, and maybe finally, if you're lucky, some thoughts. And then maybe you might come across a technique to move your breath in your body, maybe certain channels, certain movement, and that changes your perception, gives you a certain energy, a certain vigor in life. You wake up and you practice something, you feel more strong, you're more confident, you have less anxiety. So versus someone who is still lost. By lost, I'm saying maybe still stuck in that anxiety, does not know what to do, um, did not have an inspiration from from source or from a teacher, things like that. How does so I'm trying to find what is the key. Like, is there, if someone is, let's say, if someone would come to you, David, and you teach him or you'd guide him to certain paths, which one would they be? Someone who is maybe starting out in their journey for the first time. I hope I put the question in a clarifying way.
Uh, Look, I think that there are maybe two parts to the question that you ask. One, you're asking about technology, so techniques and practices. Okay, are they good? Are they helpful? Yes, they are. Absolutely. There is some technique and practice better than another. I mean, yes and no. It depends a little bit on what's logically your immediate sort of need. Okay, let's put it like this. Not even purpose. Purpose, it's gonna bring us in another direction. But let's say, depending on what's your immediate need, there are different practices, and yes, of course, some may be better than others for your specific personality, mental whatever configuration, and blah 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 blah, right, and so forth and so on. And so yes, by all means, there are nowadays so many techniques available. Consider that in my generation, I mean, we had no computer, no internet, no smartphones, right? And there was definitely not so much literature available as it is today. So you had to go and find a teacher, which were also much more scarce because, there were not so many yoga schools, guru, Taoist master, or qigong master. It was a bit of a different reality, right? And so nowadays there is such an inflation of information. You open YouTube or Google, you put any keywords, spiritual practices, meditation practices, breathing practices, and you can find thousands, okay, of exercises. And so you ask me, are they good? Well, yes. I mean, some are definitely better than others. On the whole, if from zero you start something, you will notice a delta of difference, of improvement, starting from zero, whatever. Even if you start to clap your hand 5 minutes a day, you will experience an increased level of energy, vitality, and stress reduction. Okay, so from a zero level, whatever really you start to do with a certain consistency, it will bring you improvement. Okay, then from there, again, depending a little bit on what are your needs, your history, background, and then you start to look a little bit at your purpose. Well, then you will have to maybe go and start to look a bit more in details, the type of practices that you want to do. Right? For example, in your case, you tell me about Kriya Yoga and Qigong. Those are so very different practices with so diametrically opposed purposes, right? Which, I would, if I would have to sort of, let's say like this, guide you or counsel you, I would try to understand a little bit more, because, you are doing two things, the purpose of which is diametrically opposite and just does not combine. Okay. So
What
it's
is the
like, okay,
purpose? Sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious. What is the purpose of Neigong?
well, the purpose of Negong, it's growing internal power. And power, it's like a sword. You only forge it if you want to use it. Power is made to be used and to be shown. You have power to fight, to go to war, to set things on fire, to have sex 5 hours a day. Whatever is it, it's power. So power, you grow your power, and that power is going to show into your life, and is to use it. Okay. You know, Kriya Yoga, it's diametrically opposite. You have to kill the energies, So for the pranas, they have to die in all the nadis, and they have to be drawn in the central channel, and you become like a vegetable. You stop breathing, your heart stops, and you remain in the catcher space, in suspended samadhis for many hours, and you have whatever, the vision of God, of the guru, and it's a diametrically opposite journey, that, and even the pull of your ego that pull you in this direction already show me that there is a fracture in your being. There is a conflict in your being, that on one side you want power, satisfaction, fulfillment. On the other side, you are looking to don't feel anything and disappear. And so, again, if I would have to guide you, I would, more than give you more techniques, I would actually ask you hard questions. Why? Why do you think you need this? Or why do you think you need that? What do you think? What are you doing? Why? Right. And so that would be my very personal approach. Right. And then identify if this or that is actually appropriate for you. Maybe I would say, no, actually, both this and this wrong. For you, it's painting school and ballet. Right. And sometimes I do this, and sometimes people don't like the answer because they think that, doing Kriya Yoga or Neigong is more spiritual, it's high, and instead you tell me to go and painting and singing, and this is no, it's I am higher, I'm more spiritual, I'm more developed. I need these higher, more powerful instruments. Why you tell me to do something so simple? And that's again, the ego gets hurt and it shows itself. And so the devil shows its face, right? So coming back to the first part of your question about techniques, again, starting from zero, whatever you start to do with a certain consistency is good. And most techniques are okay with it, are okay. Some can be a bit better than others, right? Again, depending on your character, constitution, background, right? Then if we start to go a little bit more in depth about purpose, we start already to have a kind of a bigger conversation, right, in terms of practices and techniques and tradition and the type of journey you are in. The second part of your question, I think that the second part of your question, again, has to do with the understanding that you have of yourself and of why you do what you do. And so, are these practices good? Yes, for sure. Are they really connected, and are they really necessary in order to become who I think I need to become? Or are they really necessary in order for me to become truly myself, truly who I can be? But that's a very different question. Very different question. And the answer here is already not so black and white. I can tell you, do you need to do qigong and fill up your tantien in order to become who you can be in this life? No. But, and that's what I say, it's not such a black and white answer. But if I, David, didn't go through all the process of believing that I had to fill up my tantien to give meaning to my existence, and that was the most important thing to do in life, I probably would not be here talking with you about this in this way, right? And so, do you need it to be who you can be? Well, no, but also maybe yes. Maybe you need to go through the phase where you need to do 100,000 prostration and 100,000 mantras and 100,000 mandala offering and whatever is it, exercises. And so, because by doing those practices, as you correctly say, something happened for sure. These exercises, I always say, they have an incredible value of interfacing mind and body. And so somehow they shape and connect your brain and your psyche and your mind in very novel ways, which are good, but they are not what will make you be who you can and should be in this life. Because you have a lot of fanatics, Buddhists and Negongists, Taoists, Hindus or Christians or Muslim, that they do a lot of practices, but their minds are this small, their dogmas are this big, their delusion, it's that thick. And so even if doing these practices and they do it religiously many hours, and so yes, they somehow with these practices, they do connect mind and body and create some interesting effects inside themselves. That doesn't make them free. That doesn't make them. The paradox is actually that's probably exactly what does not allow them to see and to hear who they are and what they need to be who they are. Right. So it's a bit more of a gray area, the second part of the question, about the value of these practices. And again, if nowadays I would have to be a guide to someone, I would put a lot of this element in the equation and in consideration to guide that person. Hmm? It's my wife. She say I guide her every day. She's my best student.
Is she Russian
She's Russian.
or okay? Okay. Yeah, I've seen her pictures. Tell her she's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I remember like it was so as I said at beginning of, first of all, thank you for the beautiful explanation of the I'm just like getting new downloads of like thought process that I have not thought before. In my mind was, if I combine certain practices, so my ultimate practice is kriya yoga, and that is like the pranayama. So one of my current purposes for the past year was sort of like, how do I breathe in the channel. I put in some hatha yoga in the morning, and it deepened my pranayama practice. And then I inserted the last practice we spoke about. It's, I don't want to pronounce it badly, it's Xing Zing Zhuang, if I'm not mistaken.
Xin, Sen,
Xing
Juan.
Zen Zhuang.
Yes.
And that brought in a different element, some of the practices. So there was my understanding, like how to deepen the perfect practice, clear the channels. And I really, and it was eye-opening for me when you mentioned the purpose of certain different practices, and when not to, what is complementary and what has two different lines of diametric version. Thank you for pointing that out. I really appreciate that.
I'm
And
sharing the video. The video stuck for a sec. Okay, you are back.
yeah, I just wanted to thank
Yeah,
you
I heard.
for
Yeah.
opening the diametric nature of the different practices. Um, and another thing I've been really really curious about, like since we just jumped into the topic of neigong and qigong, or even per se hatha yoga. Where did this originate? I've read there are maybe shamanic origins to certain aspects, and then there was this a martial art historian passed away late, I think Kindley E, an African origins. His theory is all of these moves and kung fu and everything came from psychedelic visions. So it's another different branch. So I'm just curious, how did a human being in this body and mind, is it like something they observed from nature, or they had their own visionary experiences devoid of anything else, or maybe certain traditions talks about dreams. I'm just curious, how would something powerful develop for a specific purpose that a human could use?
Well, you know, you can spend years polishing the perfect practice, bringing together this element and that element, and I did it. Okay, guilty as charged. I was fascinated, and there is a form of of well, of pride in feeling that you are so smart, you know so much, okay, and you understand so much, and so you can create and combine, and you can polish the perfect practice. But now I'm gonna add this element and that element, this one now I change it, this one like this, then I test it, oh, like this is more effective, this one is better. You know, it was definitely, you know, in this sense, my sin, um, as the same sin of pride in you know, I hear myself, I liked to hear myself talking, how smart I was, giving lectures, you know so much, and you can impress people. Okay, I know the theory, the history, the hidden history, and you can this, that, and you can come up with, you know, many amazing things. And, you know, as long as, again, you enjoy it, it's your toy, you know, it's an hobby. You want to polish the perfect practice and makes you feel good about yourself, and then, you know, that gives you a sense of confidence, and then you like to boast about it when you talk to other people to show how smart you are and how much you know. Hey, there's nothing wrong with it, right? And again, the guilty as charged. um I did it, and then, yeah, I mean, and you did it, and then you tested, and, you know, you're successful, right? And that confirm your ego. You feel good. Wow, I was right. I know, I understand, I can do it, I can replicate the result. It works. It makes you feel very potent, very powerful, right? Makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you proud. So this ambition lead to a kind of pride. And and then maybe one day, you know, you don't need it anymore. So they say, you know. So you are very young. I mean, enjoy the process, polish the practice, combine Hatha Yoga, Sinsanjuang, Neigong, Kriya. Enjoy it. Try. Whatever I could tell you now, it would make no sense to you, because you need to create your own experience. Okay, listen, I had a Korean teacher that for 11 years hammered me in every possible way, tried to wake me up from my slumber. It's all waste of time. This is not the way, you know, this is not awakening. This is nothing, nothing. I was obsessed with power, levitating, microcosmic, immortality, rejuvenation, fire, thunderbolts, siddhis, and so forth and so on. Okay, and 11 years, he laughed at me when I would secretly go and meditate. He didn't let me meditate. Okay, I would, because I had to cultivate my tantien and turn my energies and open my chakras and rise my kundalinis and try to combine this element that I learned from this guru with the one that I understood from the other guru, and, you know, blah 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 blah. You know, he would come and throw cold water on me whenever I was trying to meditate, or kick me, or come with the pots and boom boom, you know, say, wake up, don't sleep. So I was not sleeping, I was meditating. Yeah, sleep, same like sleep. 11 years. I couldn't understand. So whatever I'm going to tell you now, you know, and whatever information I'm going to give you is what is going to comfort or confirm whatever is your idea or scenario or fairy tale that you tell yourself, the narrative. the meaning that you want to give. Oh yes, these practices, martial arts were created in a dream from psychedelics. No, it's the gods that show us. No, we learn it from the animal. What do you want to hear? What confirms your theory? I can tell you whatever confirms your story. But it's just a story. It's another story. Okay. It has nothing to do neither with you, neither with God, neither with spirituality, neither with who you can be, neither with who you should be, neither with who you are, neither with what you should do or what you shouldn't do. Right. Sorry? My wife said that I'm always boo 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 boo. Caressing the ego and making you feel good, you can only do it when you believe it. If I believe in the fairy tale, I'm a Sifu and I need to fill up the Tantien and there are 72 levels and I need to open the chakra and circulate the energy and do this, or I need to pray to Tara and see the Buddhas and la 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 la. If you believe in that story, okay, then you can motivate other people. And I was a great motivator of people because I believed in these stories. Many of the things that people now teach you, shaman, are stories that they're from me and they still repeat them. So sometimes I sit back and I listen. Okay, the practices that they learn from me, the stories that they learn from me, right, that maybe were repeated to them by somebody else to confirm it to them. And again, you can only motivate people when you believe in it. So that's what I say. I lost interest in the stories, in the toys. So I can't give you that now. Right. You ask me what's my interest now? Well, it's what we talk about. That's my interest now. Right. The truth.
Yeah, I was just trying to. Previously, you mentioned how uh, suffering is the resistance to love. When we are talking about the sticks and the carrot. So you brought up love, and love is used in many ways these days. How do you love? And what do you love? What is love, etc. And
Those are much better questions. Definitely more interesting. Definitely more true, more relevant and important
mm,
questions. Those are the questions that can bring you to the right direction, to be who you can be in this life, to become yourself, to become who you should be in this life. So stick to these questions more than the other ones. The other questions, just forget them. Just stick to these questions. Do your practice, polish your perfect practice, go on this adventure, enjoy yourself, learn, experience, very good. But stick to the important question. Love is the answer. And when love will become the answer, there will be no other questions.
mm,
And this one took me many years to understand. When love is the answer, there are no more questions. But it can take a long journey until love becomes the answer. And so focus your questions on love. I think you have a better chance that you will find the answer that is true, and that is love. Because if you ask about chi, chakras, who created martial arts, you go very far. Yeah, I mean, eventually, you come back, possibly in a circle, but it's a very long journey. If I can give you, a counseling here, refocus your questions. And just remember this, love is the answer. If really the day that you wake up and you know that love is the answer, there are no more questions. And then your life becomes different. You prioritize yourself and everything in your life in a very different way. But it can take 20, 30, 40 years to understand and to have that answer. When someone asks you a question, your answer, your true answer is love. So it can take a very long time for love to become the answer, to become your answer. And you will know it because suddenly there will be no other questions. There will be no questions because you have found the answer. And well, then maybe the only question that will remain is, how do I break the wall that separates me from love? How do I stop resisting? How do I weaken the resistances that I have to love? How can I learn how to love? What is the practice of it? That will become an interesting podcast. If somebody one day will actually ask me these questions. Nobody still asks me these questions. Because it's still not their answer. And it was not my answer for so many years. So again, it's a journey. And so that's what I say. It's like it's not so black and white. Right? And you have to ask the questions that you ask because those are the questions that you have now. Keep evolving. Keep reaching toward love. Okay? Make that at least your compass. Not samadhis, how long you can hold your breath, you can stop your heart, how full is your tantien, do you make electricity? Keep your compass at least in that direction. Okay?
Thank you. It was
You're welcome.
Thank you so much,
Very
David.
well.
It was a very enlightening conversation. It's a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and hope to hope to learn more from you, hear more from you, and I wish you all the best,
Thank
David.
you.